Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Business Time. It is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country, and my name is William Kumwembe. In the program today, experts bang heads on agricultural privatization, and also in the program, we look at the central bank's MPC decision and its possible effect on the local economy. We have these and other stories. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome, and we start with our main story in the program. Agriculture Extension Services experts are meeting in Longwe to rebrand agriculture extension and make it deliver maximum results towards the sector's commercialization. The Indawa is held under the theme Rebranding Extension for Enhanced Public or Private Sector-Driven Commercialization, Industrialization and Inclusive Food Systems. Addressing the delegates, Minister of Agriculture Sam Kawale said rebranding extension for a thriving, inclusive and modern agriculture future is all about making extension exciting and accessible. Now, delivering a keynote address, National Planning Commission Chairperson Richard Mkandawire underscored the need for players in the agriculture sector to align extension and advisory services at the continental level.
The main message was on the need for aligning the extension and advisory services at the continental level to the continental framework, which is known as the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program. And from that continental program, we have learned a lot of lessons. One of them is that we need to have a coalition of the willing in driving transformative food systems in Africa. We need to bring on board civil society organizations, we need to bring board researchers, we need to bring on board institutions of higher learning as well to work together with one collective voice. But more importantly, the key message also is that we need to strengthen these advisory services by ensuring that there's adequate financing made available from government, because they play a very instrumental role in supporting increased agricultural productivity. And one way of doing that is not just to look at donors. This is now more broadly in terms of supporting food systems at the continental level. We need to begin to look at innovative financing mechanisms in our own countries. We cannot continue to rely on the global north to perpetually fund our programs. It is time that we began to look at, especially at the middle class. To what extent is the middle class in Africa making a contribution for the restoration of their own agricultural sector? Including, by the way, I must mention, which I did mention, the need for the restoration of our soils, because our soils are some of the most degraded, globally, because we have not been able to replenish the loss of nutrients in our soils, and therefore we need to find mechanisms of that restoration of our soils. And more particularly, as we prepare our own action plan on soil health in Malawi, we need to ask the big question, who's going to fund that? It's got to be we ourselves in the country, and therefore citizens in the country should fund that. But beyond that, the private sector, how do we join efforts with the private sector to be part of the movement toward the transformation of the agriculture sector? So that's the key message. No, the ratios, one extension worker to 1,000 smallholder farmers is too high. We need to find ways of building a critical mass of extension workers. And one way of doing that is, of course, to make sure that there are resources for training more extension workers. And these extension workers, they do not have to be employed by the public sector. They can actually be private extension, service providers. Why not actually, beef up our extension systems with trainees from the TVET system? Why don't we introduce in the TVET system a program for training extension workers, and they're capable of supporting even mega farms. We make an assumption that mega farm owners are knowledgeable about transformative food systems. They don't know the new technologies. They don't know how to manage their own farms. Why not actually increase the pool of extension workers, both at the tertiary level like university, but more importantly, move into the TVET sector as well and train massive numbers that will really have an impact on the ground. But equally important, though, is the question of accountability. Very often, there's an assumption that essential workers can only be accountable to the leadership within the government bureaucracy. But this is not right. Essential workers and other public officials must be accountable to the local communities, to the farmers themselves and the local community. This includes politicians. They must be accountable to the people who put them in the office. In any case, essential workers, public officials, including politicians, they're employees of the people, and therefore they must be accountable to those people. Therefore, we need to find a mechanism of accountability even at that level. In as much as we want to make sure that there's an accountability mechanism introduced for the high-level bureaucrats, but at the lower level too, we need to make sure that there's accountability of these public officials, but they must be accountable to the communities they serve. Indeed, I think in many ways, these are forgotten public servants. They live in rural areas, and the headquarters, does not even reach out to them. And I'm delighted to hear that the Honourable Minister has been visiting these essential workers. They have got their own concerns. One is mobility. Some of them have a bicycles which are not even repaired. If anything, they've got a motorcycle, but there may be only one motorcycle at the EPA, and they are run, those motorcycles by, the officer in charge. What about the other lower level, essential workers? Do they have, enough support in terms of their mobility to reach the remote areas? So no wonder a lot of farmers are not reached, because there is actual lack of mobility. But again, this speaks to availability of financing. We need to finance that sector. There's no reason why, as we begin now looking at repurposing our fertilizer subsidies, why a portion of those funds can go to strengthening our extension systems.
Now, the latest Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of Malawi has projected a mixed outlook for 2025, with inflation expected to slow down while revising the growth rate to 3.2% from initial 4% projection. The central bank last week maintained the policy rate at 26%. However, RBM expresses worry over the effects of weather situation characterized by dry spells in some parts of the country, leading to lower than required volumes of maize. For details on the MPC position, we have this report.
RBM's monetary technical team met with the private sector and other stakeholders in Lilongwe on Tuesday to provide more insights of the recent monetary policy statement, which projected 3.2% growth rate and 27% inflation this year, having maintained the tight monetary policy stance with 26% policy rate. Although the projected 27% inflation is lower than the 32.2% in 2024, it is higher than 26.5% projected in October. And the ECAMA Executive Director, Esme Korihea Kanyumbo, thinks it is still on the lower side. She further challenged the 3.2% growth projection that was revised from 4%. She cited the low agricultural output and other factors, while urging authorities to increase investment in the priority sectors under the ATMM strategy that only have 1% of the total budget.
We still think that the number 27% is still on the lower side, given the fundamentals on the ground. Precisely, if you look at the maize prices that we took time to discuss in the meeting, we know maize prices, initially the forecast was low. Now maize prices are up, given the minimum prices that the government has set. And also on the uncertainties to do with cross-border trade and donor freezing and everything. If you look at everything, we still think that the 27% inflation number is still on the lower side. And in addition to that, even the 3.2% growth rate, we think, if you look at all the factors that we've talked about, the dropping the forecast of agriculture production, the uncertainties on the cross-border trade, if you look at maybe the donor aid freezing and everything, we still think the 3.2% is on the lower side. And also mentioned to say that we've been missing focus most of the times. The focus has been big numbers. If you look at the past 3 years, we miss a lot. So the 3.2% should also be treated with caution. Yes, we know the Reserve Bank has the mandate maybe to revise the monetary policy rate as they can revise or they can maintain as they have done this period. But the Reserve Bank of Mali has also a limit to what they can do. So we talk of the supply side. We're talking of the prices of maize. So we looking at now the production side of things. A lot has to be produced if we have to take care of inflation to reach the numbers that we're talking about, the 5% target that we're talking about. So the Reserve Bank of Mali, yes, they can do their part, but we also need production. So that's the supply side. We also need to increase our production of agricultural products and other products. So I said if we can maybe find ways of financing the agriculture sector, the mining sector, the manufacturing, the tourism sector, then maybe we would bring inflation numbers down and take GDP growth rates up.
A number of participants were more pessimistic in the outlook, and one of them was a director of a food processing company from Kotakota called Steadfast Corporation, Tokuzani Fixon. He said the manufacturing sector is challenged by serious headwinds that include forex scarcity and expensive raw materials, raising questions on where economic growth will come from.
One of the drivers of the inflation, that is the manufacturing sector. So for us to manufacture, we need machinery. These are machinery that we bought from outside of the country. And for us to find forex, sometimes we get the forex, but the bank automatically converts 70% of it. Now they're saying it's 50%. That also affects us to have this machinery in time and start manufacturing and exporting the manufactured product. So as we are saying, we want to have more forex from the exports, we also need to look at the manufacturing part to say how do the companies import this machinery. As well, the rising of the inflation, especially the food inflation, as someone who is into food processing, it is affecting us because consumers are being affected by these inflation issues. You have seen the farm gate price is really a risk because the rising of the farm gate price will also affect the pricing of the final product. That means the consumer, who are the same people in the villages, the same people who are the low-income earners, they will be affected by this rising of the prices. So it has really affected the private sector.
Meanwhile, the RBM officials say they are still assessing the economy and will come up with new projections once a report is out.
Remember, this is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. My name is William Kumwembe. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Business Time, and moving on with the program. World Bank Country Manager Faraz Rad has called for more investment in infrastructure development and renewable energy to promote use of electric vehicles, which have the potential to reduce the country's spending on fuel importation. Rad said this during an electric mobility in Malawi workshop in Lilongwe. A report presented during the workshop by a United Kingdom-based sustainability consultant company, Ricardo, indicates that there will be 30,690 electric vehicles in the country by 2035. Rad explains.
So it was a pleasure for myself and my colleagues from the World Bank Group to be here today at this workshop around e-mobility here in Malawi. This is a very important agenda for the World Bank. It's part of all of the efforts that countries around the world are taking to green their different sectors as part of the energy transition. We think Malawi has made some important strides in promoting the e-mobility sector in terms of the waivers it's given to custom and import duties, and also the regulatory frameworks that it has begun to prepare. We do think there are improvements and further steps that the government should be taking, and now this is the subject of discussion here at the workshop today with the Ministries of Energy and Transport. But I'd like to thank the government for all of the efforts that it has exerted in this area, and on our side in the World Bank we have been supporting these efforts through various analytical inputs and technical assistance that we're bringing to bear. And we're quite excited about this agenda because, as was mentioned today in the workshop, e-mobility, this agenda promotes various objectives. It greens the sector, especially the transport sector. It makes it much more efficient as well. And then it supports the country in terms of forex liquidity. As you know, the country spends a lot of its hard currency on importing fuel. With a greater fleet of EVs here in Malawi, I think that burden will be less on the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. So for all of those reasons, the World Bank is supporting this development agenda, and we look forward to working with the government more closely in the future to promote it. It's important to invest in the surrounding infrastructure to promote this sector, and specifically the charging infrastructure. So it's one thing to bring the EVs into the country, but to make sure that around the country you have stations at which you can charge these vehicles. And I said as well that you need to focus on the standards, the quality and safety standards of that charging infrastructure. I think that is that's essential. But also efforts have to be taken to incentivize and get private actors enthused about investing in this sector as it continues to grow. So it's a combination of the right regulations, the incentives for investors, and then efforts to make sure that the charging infrastructure is also in place to promote the sector's development.
Now, Sky Energy Africa has announced plans to roll out local assembling of batteries on electric motor vehicles in the country in 2030. The company's managing director, Shinzo Thompson, said this when the company participated in the e-mobility in Malawi workshop held in Lilongwe last week. During the event, the company showcased 5 of its electric vehicles.
And a quick look into the background of the electric vehicle that we introduced in Malawi in 2015 is that now we are touching base with a great improvement in terms of adoption and escalation of understanding, because technically before there was several misconceptions about the EVs and the like, but now we are saying we are seeing a different change in terms of understanding how they work and all that. So basically electric vehicles have an upper advantage in terms of maintenances. They have less movable parts as compared to internal combustion engine, and as you already know, Malawi is actually externalized $600 million every year purchasing fuel. So by introducing electric vehicle, the vehicles will try to offset that, and already that 600 million is bringing trade balance in terms of what we are exporting and the like. So by rolling out these EVs and being conceptualized in a different sector of institutions in Malawi, it means Malawi will save in forex. At the same time, people will save money because they don't use fuel. At the same time, the maintenance cost is very little, as well as the whole ambience of the electric vehicle is so different here. Well, we should say that these vehicles, slowly they are getting affordable because there is improvement in terms of technology and all that. So I will tell you that the exact vehicle like that in a showroom condition as compared to internal combustion engine, you find that they're actually cheaper. But if you compare to the used imported vehicles like those that people get from Japan and the like, they find these ones are expensive. But if you go in a showroom buying a brand new car equally sized to the electric vehicle that we've got, you find that they are way less than the internal combustion engine. And we should say thanks to the government for removing duty and taxes for importation of these electric vehicles, so that people can easily adopt these EVs. So right now, if you look into statistics from the road traffic, since these vehicles are being brought by different organizations, us as Sky Energy, there is Bruzon, there is Vitalite, there is Imperial Motors and all, and people are bringing them individually. But we should be in the region between 50 to 100, the vehicles that are in the country at the moment. This is collective from different suppliers, yes. As a company, we wanted to start assembling in the near future so that we can create more jobs as well as cut costs in terms of relying on importation, but we can start slowly by assembling these vehicles here, because these vehicles are actually very easy to assemble. They use basic technology and are not sophisticated, so it will be pretty much easy to assemble here, especially starting with the battery management system, the energy storage system, the inverter, the motor, the traction motor and the like. Those we can actually assemble here if we have the wood, and at a later stage we can now start building the actual wood here. But it takes time to have these things done. But that's our commitment, because we don't want to be another stall of being in Malawi importing vehicles for 100 years and not manufacturing. We don't want to reach that like that. So we are planning to invest a couple of $1 million to reach that goal, but we are looking by 2030 we should be able to start assembling the batteries on the EVs, the traction motor, the battery management system and the like. And before Vision 2063 is reached, this vehicle should be assembled.
Now, in other business news, Portland Cement Malawi Limited has reiterated its commitment to ensure it meets demand both on local and international markets. Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs at the cement manufacturer, Violet Virili, told Business Time that currently the local production does not meet demand depending on seasonality. Virili, however, says once commissioned, the company's new cement plant in Balaka district will have the capacity to meet the local demand while exporting the rest to the foreign markets. Journalist Eric Nsikiti speaks with Virili in this interview.
This is a national impact project. We will be increasing our cement production to 800,000 tons per annum. This is quite significant, and it also allows us to reach out to foreign markets, meaning that we have a huge impact on import substitution. We don't expect that following the commissioning of the project, there will be need to import cement, because the country, through our additional capacity, should be able to meet the demand. Further to this, we're looking at also reaching out to foreign markets with the excess capacity. This is also a source of forex generation, which is much needed in the country at the moment. Talking of employment and job creation, it's a massive project. We're looking at employing direct workers within Portland and external in excess of 4,000. We expect to commission the project by September, all things being equal, particularly targeting the end of fourth quarter of this year. At the moment, the cement production is not able to meet the local production, depending on seasonality, is not able to meet the peak periods, but we are looking at, when we commission, we should be able to meet the local demand both on and off peak. This is quite a milestone for us, because we have been anticipating the settlement of this dispute so that we can proceed to extend with our project timelines. If you recall, previously we had indicated that we would like to commission the project by the end of the fourth quarter. This is an enabling environment and an enabling milestone for us to allow us to proceed with those plans.
Well, with that story, we've also come to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time on Times Television. It is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. On behalf of the entire production team, my name is William Kumwembe. Thank you for watching, but always remember, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Goodbye for now.